third. So very important part. And this part, mainly people will assess your capability based on two parts in your application. One is the rope section, another is inside of your proposal. So I talk about the rope section first. For rope section, very important part is your top 10 publications. And somebody will go through all your 100 days publications, but for panel member, if they don't have enough time, they will only look after your top 10 publications or mainly look after your top 10. So you need to carefully select top 10 publications. As we have discussed in previous panel discussions, roundtable meetings. Actually, this kind of roundtable discussions we have organized for many years. Every year I talk about this top 10 publications. That's so important. And you need to select top 10 publications from number of number of domains. So first you select some paper. If you have all the paper in leading journals or leading conferences, that's fantastic. And also when you have 20 papers in very top journals, then you need to consider which one have high citations. And if you have some papers who received very high citations, but for example, highly cited papers also cited by some top researchers or from researchers from leading universities, even not in leading journals, I also suggest you to select a couple of them. And also, you may have some, particularly from engineering, you may have some publications which have been purchased by some companies or by HBE or so on, and have been used in real-world applications. I will suggest you to choose those ones as well. And also, when you select 10, you need to consider your personal contribution, your authorships. And if your first author, that's perfect. If your second author, first author is your PhD student, that's also perfect. But if you have 10 authors, your name in the middle, then these people will argue how much your contributions to this paper. So carefully select by using all the selection criteria to evaluate. And you need to write 5 pages about your research achievement and contributions. I will suggest you to consider 7 parts to write this one. Don't miss anyone. The first is award. Any award, university level, Australia level, industry, this conference, any award you need to mention. That's really show you outstanding. And any project. This project, some may have this good income, some even this not high income, but project and income, this part you need to list. Because panel also would like to say, do you have any experience to manage a project when your ARCDP is successful? And about impact, I will suggest you to write impact to consider 2 parts. One is the impact to industry, another is the impact to your research community. So that's the part. For the second part, you can link with the citations and who cited your paper and how people recognize your research and how many people follow your research. For industry, people know this, how to be applied into these applications and so on. And I would like you to mention leadership if you have including internal, external collaboration. And for collaboration, also you need to say you lead the collaboration, national collaboration or international collaboration. That's leadership and collaboration that need to mention, because Australia ARC would like people and to lead the project, also through the project to lead a large one or lead a network internationally. PhD training experience need to be mentioned. The reason is ARC will give you at least one scholarship. I believe you will ask ARC for one scholarship. And UTS will give you one scholarship. This for domestic students. However, that's at least 2 scholarships in general. Then this ARC panel would like to know, do you have experience to supervise the student, and how well you supervise the students? Finally, it's services, nationally and internationally, internal and external, this academic services. So this, for me, I think that 7 points are important in your 5 pages rope section, and please this double check if any of the 7 you miss out. And I cannot say the 7 which one is more important than others. I think all of those you should mention you have done a lot, you have achieved a lot, and you made significant contribution to those. Next page. Okay, so another part also very important to show your capability, and that is in the proposal. So the 2 parts, you can have a little overlap, but try to use different sentences, different, this description, but both together, people will consider to evaluate your capability. In your proposal, I believe you are not a single CI. You have another CI or you have a PI. At least you will ask ARC to give you PhD student scholarships and research fellow or RA or whatever. In the proposal, you need to mention the whole team is excellent. The whole team has capability. So that is different from each CI's rope. So you cannot, this in proposal, also copy paste from your rope, each one put 3, 4 lines. That's not right. Of course, for each person, you need to talk about their experience, but at the beginning or somewhere, you need to mention we are a team, or you keep thinking this is a team. Second point is for each key member, that's key member doesn't mean not RA, not a PhD student, and each key member's experience related to the project you need to mention. In your rope, you can mention you have done something, for example, civil engineering and machine learning, but your project is about civil. Then in your this proposal, when you mention this investigator, you need to focus on this. We have this civil experience, and because this project is about civil. Okay, must related to topics, objectives, aims of the project. And also you need to mention your role, and you will lead the project or you will lead one task of the project. Number 3, if you have PIs, and this you must mention you as a CI have been working with the PI for some time, many years or 1 year or even this 6 months, but you have been working together and you have this completed some research activities. For example, join the papers, join the project, even you chair same workshops, or you have some these other meetings, you need to mention. Because the ARC panel would like to say how the PI can work with you together and work with you very closely, and it really can make a contribution. And next point, I would like to say, you can mention all the CIs where we assume you have 3 CIs, 1 PI, then you need to say this, your skills and your knowledge and your experience together, combined together to provide the coverage of the domain of the proposal. That is important. They really think every CI is necessary. If we miss anyone, the project is hard. It will be hard, and so everyone can make a contribution. So they will, because in this proposal, they will evaluate the team, not each individual. And if you ask 2 or 3 PhD scholarships, then you need to mention which CI will supervise student 1, which CI will supervise student 2, and work on task 1, task 2. Give a little bit of details. People will know you have carefully think and the whole plan of the project. And finally, if you have a big team, number of CIs, PI, students, RA, so on, and people would like to know how you, what is your management of the team. So you meet once per week, you meet once per month, or through Zoom and so on. Also write 2-3 lines to highlight what is your plan. So that is my suggestion for this investigator and capability. And so Renee, now we move to.
G, I think there's one question on the chat from Ben Halcon. He's asking about the industry relevance was not considered particularly important for DP. Has they started to change more recently?
Industry related experience, or that means your capability, your industry capability are all important. So this back to my last page. I have this so impact in industry. That's it. That is your industry experience, to work with the industry or your industry project and so on. I'll mention here, and to show your this your research is significant to support industry, whatever business intelligence or particular transportation, healthcare, anywhere. That's important.
But my understanding, was that DPs were more targeted at lower TRL science, and that therefore it's not always possible for people that are focused on this kind of work to have strong industry collaboration. So if you're pursuing research that's like at higher TRLs and is more industrially relevant, then you would probably look towards linkage projects and other types of funding opportunities. Rather than DP. So it's somewhat in conflict that, to be successful in a DP, you have to also be, a superstar when it comes to doing industry relevant stuff. It kind of doesn't, do you know where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I got your idea. That is not the investigator. What you talked about, Cheng-Chi will answer your question. That is research aims, research issues, research objectives, and methodology. Those parts you must have a theoretical research. You must have this this called discovery project. My talk is about your capability to do the project. Now, Cheng-Chi will answer your question more directly because he will talk about research proposal itself, about aims tasks, and so on.
Can I also offer certain insight into that to help Ji answer this question? I think these 7 points are all very important, but the focus for each individual applicant should be different, very according to your experience, which stage of career you are at. For example, if you are well-established professor, you have been getting grants in decades, then you can't just say, I will make a big industry impact if I get the grant, if you haven't made any impact in industry at all, right? I think that's where this point becomes important. But if you are junior researcher or mid-career researcher, maybe it's not as important. That's my opinion. I hope that answered the question somehow. Thank you.
That's helpful, thank you. I appreciate you adding extra context. It does make sense that these things are all a function of what stage of the career the individual is at for certain.
Yeah, absolutely. If you are a junior, definitely you wouldn't have made impact industry. So that's a given. But again, I said, if you have been getting grant for decades, you can't say every time you apply for grant, you say, I will make a major industry impact, but I haven't made any. That won't be convincing.
Okay, thanks, Jai. Now we move to Chengqi.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Oh, good. My part will focus on project quality and innovation. Can I control the PPT? Okay, so the first thing I would like to talk about links among all parts. As one proposal, each part is not independent. They link together. As you mentioned, investigate capability. If your capability is not good enough, strong enough, then doesn't matter how good your project quality. But if your capability is not match your project, that's another issue. Even you're very strong in one area, but your proposal is in another area, so that's not a good idea. That's why the first thing I talk about the links. When people read your proposal, they don't have enough time. So in that case, the first link I talk about, you should use by tags or syntax. What do I mean for tags? For tags, for example, in your proposal, you mentioned you have aim and objective. Then you said in order to solve the problem, you decompose your project to several tasks or topics. If you mention that, it's better for you to give the name. For example, task 1, task 2, task 3. The reason is in the later part, in the research methodology, you need to talk about again, so you need a link. When you talk to timetable, you need to mention it again, so you need a link. So if you need to mention again in the future, in the later, you need to give a text. So that is important for people to easily to understand what you talk about. And also it's easy for accessor to check whether your proposal is complete. For example, in the beginning, you talk about the 4 tasks, and in the later on research methodology, you talk about something different. In the timetable, you talk about another thing. Then accessor quickly find your application proposal is not complete. That's why try to use the text if you reference later. Second thing, link who cares to significant. What do you mean who cares? In the beginning, normally in the proposal you talk about what you try to do, why it's important. When you talk about the important, and the later on you will mention your proposal is significant, you need to link them together. Also, in the beginning you talk about your research methodology. then you need a link to your innovation. Other links is important for research topics. Expect outcome link to deliverables. So basically, in this page, I talk about the link. You need to make your proposal complete and no redundant. So that's why if you need, when you finish the proposal, you need to come back to check whether all links is clearly and tight. So that's about the links. Then we go to the next page. So in this page, I will more focus on the first page. Some people like is a linear idea to write a proposal. What do I mean for linear? So in the first page, you talk about aim, then you jump to background, then talk to project, then talk to feasibility. Basically, the idea is that if you don't read my all proposal, you cannot understand my idea. But if you write a paper, you also have a abstract, you also have introduction. Basically, abstract introduction to cover all the papers. So that is a hierarchy. And the rest part is to justify what you claim. In the proposal, even more important, in the first page, you need to give a clear idea what is about your proposal. In order to test that, can you just read one page, forget about the rest of 9 pages, and people can understand 50% or more? So if you want to test, you just give your colleague or friend 1 page, then don't give them the whole proposal. Then let them answer what you talk about. If they answer more than 50% of your proposal, then your proposal is really good. If they only answer 20%, 30%, and that will be impact the judgment by assessors. So you can imagine if the assessor is so busy, they only spend half hour, they read your first page. If they can't catch up your main idea, and you might get a low score. That's why in the first page you cover everything. That's just like a hierarchy. The rest page you must match the first page. The first paragraph normally talks about the problem description and what is the problem to be researched on. Then we talk about aims. And some people at the beginning say, my research is so important and such important. The question is, people may not know what you talk about. So normally in the first couple sentences or first paragraph, you need to talk about what you try to do. And quite a number of people believe people already understand his research. That is not true, because not every people in your area, even assessor, if half of them is expert in your area, you're lucky. And maybe more than half is just layman. They are researchers, but not in your area. So after you talk about what your problem, the follow-up is talk about who cares. And who cares is basically talk about why your research is so important. And you can't write too much in this place, but at least you need to talk about if your research is successful, who will be benefit? At least you need to mention 1 or 2. In the significant part, you need to match what you talk about here. After talk about who cares, that means your people know what you talk about, what you try to research, and your research is so important. The next question they will ask, what the problem is still outstanding or limitation? And you can skip this part because in the first page, you don't have much space. But people will care whether research is already thought out. You can move this part to background, but if you mention 1 or 2 here, briefly, that will be good. So in your background part, then you can link to here. After that, people will care about what is the research methodology or innovation. So what's your idea? You try to solve this problem. And this part will link to your innovation. When you write innovation, they will care about you have a new methodology. So after you write this part, you need to write some research topics. Because you have M is general, but how can you solve it? Normally you need to decompose to 3 or 4, normally 3 or 4 tasks. Some people decompose too many. For example, I heard some people decompose to 14 tasks. That's too detailed. If you have 14 tasks, it's better for you to combine them together to 3 or 4. Then each task have 2 or 3 or 4 subtasks. So it's better not to make so many subtasks. For task, I suggest 3 or 4. For subtasks together, I suggest not more than 10. Otherwise, it's too hard to catch up. So that is the important part. You need to decompose task here, because this page gives people idea. You have a problem, it's important, and still unsolved, and you have new idea to solve it, and use this specific task, you know how to solve it. And this part is so important to link later on when you talk about your methodology. You directly go to how to solve the task. And some people don't mention here. In the later on said, I would like to solve the following 4 tasks, no justification. Why you solve this 4 tasks? Why you solve these 3 tasks? And no link, no reason. How can people know if you solve these 4 tasks, you can solve this proposal? You can solve the problem in the proposal. So no link. That will get easily attacked. And so if whatever you want to solve, you need to put this page and people understand why you want to do it. And later on, we just talk about how to solve it. And that is, I believe, important in the first page you mentioned here. And if you have space, you need to talk about what is expected outcome and how to evaluate. But sometimes you don't have enough space. And if you have a picture to link all the subtasks, that will be help, because people have a full picture from first page. In the first page, just claim, no justification. Because later on, you have background, you justify what's the limitation. That is in the background part. In the significant part, you justify who cares. In the innovation part, you justify what's the research methodology. In the research project plan or design, let's justify how to solve your task. So later on, they all link to this part. So that's why this page you need to carefully design and make it concise and don't miss some parts. But certainly some people like a linear format, and sometimes still people success. And it's not necessarily this only one, but I suggest one. So I call 2-8 principles for semi-specialists, because a lot of accessory is semi-specialist, not specialist. So this part, even you only use maybe 10% space, but you answer 50% content. And I believe is important. So next page. And I mentioned this in the background. There are so many related work, and you need only mention what's limitation in the first page, only relate to your proposal. You can talk about what other people have done, and try to not criticize people too much. And some people like to criticize other people, to always say, oh, they have done not good enough. Only my proposal can solve the problem. That's not a good idea. You try to confirm other people's contribution, and your contribution is on the top. So demonstrate that you even do better job. And if some background not related to your proposal, don't spend energy there. And sometimes people have a argument whether you should talk about your contribution. My personal idea, I think you need to write your personal contribution to demonstrate you're the right person to do this project. So basically, if you have done nothing, people will have a worry about your capability. And relate to this problem, you said if you have done something to write some papers, you say you have achieved something. Give people confidence, believe you are the right person to do this project. And sometimes you need to write a sentence that this research area has been extensively researched. However, this part haven't been researched enough. So because some people lazy accessor, they just say, oh, this area have done enough. You have no new ideas. They just use one sentence can kill your proposal. But if you put this sentence empty here, and you know have done extensively, but in your specific area, still not enough. So try to avoid people criticize you easily. So that's my suggestion for background. And basically write 1 page, maybe 1.5. Don't write too much. I read one proposal. They use a 7-page write background. Make this area very, very clear background. However, you only have 10 pages. You have 3 pages write your proposal, include reference. How can people understand your how to solve the problem? So that proposal dynamically, easily to be killed. So you need to balance your background at most 2 pages. But I suggest maybe 1 and 1.5 because basically talk about what have been done and what's going to do. People care, accessors care what you try to solve the problem. So don't write too long in this part. And next page. And for significant, and good idea is I suggest you write 3 around 3 for sentence. These 3 sentences are called key sentence. You talk about significant from 3 or 4 dimensions, not only use 1 dimension. For example, 1 dimension is scientific contribution. One dimension can be social impact. If you have an economic impact, but the DP normally not much. But firstly, you classify dimension. In each dimension, you write 1 paragraph. Each paragraph, you need to have a full sentence to cover your claim. So you can claim your proposal can contribute in scientifically for such. And each key sentence, I suggest you use a highlight, use a dot point. The reason is dot point because you not reference again. In the future, you will not reference it again. So that's why I use the dot point. In the task, I suggest use the tag because you need to reference it across the whole proposal. And some people write 1 paragraph in the significant. I ask that if in the 1 paragraph, how can I pick up your important part? They say, I don't know. Let accessor to identify. If you're lazy, accessor even lazy, they give you low score. So you need to identify what is your significant, and you need to classify different dimensions. You need to give them a key sentence, highlight, and accessor just quick go through. They say, oh, cover all the dimensions, have all the key sentence. They can easily to identify that. So you don't leave the job to the accessor and try to make accessor job as easy as possible. And for innovation, it's in the significant, you need to match the first page, what you claim, who cares, you need to mention that. But for innovation, it's similar. And you have new idea, you also try to write maybe 3 paragraphs. Each paragraph you need to have key sentence. Your methodology from which way you have innovated. Your method have your new method to improve effective or efficiency, or from which way your innovation. Try to make the access easier. So I read some proposal and CI didn't identify that make accessor life lots harder. So I try to emphasize this important because the impact people give us score and make access easier. So next page. So we go to the, so here, we will go to the project methodology and project design. I assume you have a list of tasks in page 1. For each task, here you just describe how to solve the problem. And as I mentioned, some people didn't mention in the first page is the linear way. If you use the linear way, you talk to here. Whenever you list the task, you must link your task to your aim. Otherwise, some people randomly say, I will solve following 4 tasks. But people will ask why? What's the link with the aim? Why you solve this task? You can solve your proposal, problem in the proposal. That is, if you miss that part, you need to put the first paragraph in this part, and don't forget that part. So this part really talk about how in this section. You need to write some sentence, I will, I plan to, I intend to. If in this section, you don't have any will, any plan to, any intend to, I have a suspect. Some people write this part, only write a prompt description and the ideas, but you need to specifically talk about I will, I plan to, I intend to, because this part, you talk about your research plan, what you try to do in next 3 years, and that is focus on this part. So I didn't tell you how to write your proposal excellently, but I try to talk some, how to avoid some problems. It's also important to make your timetable consistent with your investigator and the time duration, because this part, you need to carefully think about, some people can decompose tasks to subtasks and how to solve it. And timetable is also very important. And different people use a different format. So this format is come from my colleague called Xin-Quan Zhu. And he can only use a quarter page, make the timetable so clear. And I like this format, but this is designed by Xin-Quan Zhu. You see from bottom, you can see time for 3 years for each quarter. And in the middle, they talk about the task as a tag. Then in the bracket, they talk about who will concentrate this task. Also cover the time duration. And in this case, they talk what to do, who will do. On the top, they talk about deliverables. So in this case, the timetable is so concise, but all I cover here. You can go back to check every task is covered, every CI, PI, PhD is clear. And also here, you need to pay attention. Each PhD normally concentrate on one task. Don't let the PhD cover many tasks. RA can cover more tasks, but not for PhD student. It's better for one PhD student focus one task. In that case, the PhD thesis can be focused. So for timetable, I really appreciate this format, but different people can use different formats. But if you compare with this one, I found this one is better. So I strongly recommend you try to use this kind of format. But from ARC point of view, no firm format. Different people can use different format, but you just try to find what is a better way. So next page. So that's some take-home message. In the first page, I talk about when you talk about limitations, you talk about better you mention some challenge. The challenge basically relate to your research issues, because for the DP, you must have a research issue, because we talk about knowledge advancement. It's not like a general project. Grant, the difference between grant and the project is grant, you must have research issue. After you finish the project, you need to answer these research issues. That's why we call knowledge advancement. It's not only solve the problem, but you need to get knowledge advancement. If you miss the research issue, you just say, I have a problem, I try to solve it. That's not enough for DP. So that's why I say you need to have make very clear in the first page. And the second part is, could your proposal be understood by semi-experts? That is important because the accessor is not necessarily expert. You need to think about making it clear. And the last message is teamwork. Is don't try to by yourself, except you are so successful expert. Otherwise, after your proposal, you can ask your colleague to read. Let them feedback. Don't try to explain to them. Just give the proposal. Let them tell you what they're feeling. If that feeling is different from your idea, don't be angry. And because accessor have same feeling. So in that case, you need to rewrite. And that's your colleague. Even today's panel. And I think you're lucky in this in this faculty because we have so many panel members. So currently we have 6 panel members here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 panel members here. Also, we have other 2 panel members. So in our faculty, I think we have most panel members here. You can benefit from them to know the inside some ideas. So don't reject teamwork. Also in our faculty benefit is you can proofreadings, you can have panels, you can have peer reviews. I believe we are lucky in this faculty. If you ask your colleague, friend in other universities, oh, you can find out it's hardly to find anyone to help. So that's why I emphasize the teamwork. In one seminar, people argue, if the teamwork, can I claim it's my proposal? I say, yes, you can claim because all other people is happy from a different point of view. It's not from your ideas. The idea is still yours. People are just happy to shape up, make your proposal even better, readable, convincing. So that's why it's a teamwork, but still you are credited. So next page. So this is just my personal idea because different people use different, as Michael mentioned, different people have different advice and different style can have success. But I just believe my suggestion, success rate can be a little bit high. But from historical record, I believe that's true because I have run this idea for about more than 10 years. And my friend did a very good job, and include the colleague in our faculty. As Michael mentioned, our success rate is beat national success rate. So that's a suggestion for your reference. And if you have questions, and you can send me email or other ways, and through WeChat or whatever, I try my best to give advice. That's all for me for today. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Cheng-Chi. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. Lots of rich, your experience, rich information. So Renee, do we take questions at the moment, or we move to Daichao?
Well, there is one question from Yo Guang Gu, and I think that's very important. Like, how can we avoid misunderstanding from assessor of other discipline? For example, when we talk physical mechanism for engineering, we may mean macroscopic properties of materials, but assessors from physics generally consider atom level.
So in general, you need to write your proposal in the layman language. That's why I said use the text. And if I read a proposal for other area, what I try to do is I can't judge too much for academic detail or innovation, but I can access the complete needs. For example, in the M, they decompose to 3 tasks, and later on I will check whether they have each task they have described, and they claim in the timetable whether they mention each task have done by time duration. So people will check, that's the first round, to check your complete needs. If you talk about the task at the beginning, if you talk the research methodology or something else, in the timetable, some people even forgot timetable. no timetable, then that's the first round to check completeness. If you have a timetable, they will check whether your timetable is reasonable, whether each task is covered by people. And until this round, they find no problem. Then they will check whether you have research issue, whether you have a challenge, and what's your knowledge advancement. If second round pass, then they check whether your contribution. But in that case, for layman people, they can't criticize from your research issues, but that's common. That's why I suggest don't let me kill you in the first two parts, completeness, research issues, and hardly for people to talk about your specific research contribution. If you reach that stage, that means your proposal is already good enough. And if it really in other areas that criticize your research, is not make wrong criticize, and in that case, you can in the rejoinder you can mention that to the college expert, and every people have the same case. We can't avoid such misunderstanding. We just try our best to avoid that, but you can't get 100% fair. Even your assessment to other proposals, you also face the same problem. So my suggestion is write as clear as possible and make your proposal complete. Try to reduce this risk. You can't avoid fully. That's reality in the life.
Thank you, Cheng-Chi. Also, I add one point. The important actually at the beginning, when you choose the full code, make sure the full code is exactly in the area of your proposal. Also, in your proposal, carefully use some terms which are easy to get misunderstanding by people in other areas. I give you one of my personal example. Some years ago, in one of my proposal, I put cognitive decision making. Actually, this really is in my area. People understand cognitive decision making, but there is at that time maybe 4 assessors. 3 are very good to this report, but 1 definitely from BIOS or some area. He talked about, oh, how about your mental model, and how about something this some terms even I have never heard. So this means he came from this other domain. Then what is the decision in my following one? I just used only a couple of times, twice, cognitive decision making, and then I use other terms to replace cognitive and to talk about actually how to build a knowledge base and so on, so on. So the following one is all the assessors are in computer science area. So this is, you know, just you need to think your full code and the terms used in your proposal. That's my personal story. Okay, now we move to Daichao. Daichao will talk about this benefit of your proposal.
Thank you, Jay. It's good to see so many of us are here, especially I see a few civil engineers. Cecilia, Casson, Wengui, Zhengo. I think you should thank Mike and Jay to allow you to apply. Not everyone can apply. This is a UTS policy. Michael at the beginning mentioned we have an outstanding success rate. I just like to mention that we can't expect every year we have outstanding success rate. And the real reason we have an outstanding success rate is not because the so-called expert or former panel members. It's because you are here indicating you are interested to write a good proposal. I don't think we can help much. Rani asked me to talk about benefit. Let me share screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen, but if good, not very good now.
You will probably see those instructions in the ARC instruction for DP applications for benefits. The first point I'd like to make is benefit is not a deciding factor. It's closely related to project quality and innovation, particularly related to significance and innovation in the project quality. I have not seen a project got funded because it has a beautiful benefit, but very flawed project quality and innovation. And I have not seen a project got killed because the project quality and the innovation is outstanding, but there's no benefit. I think one colleague asked a good question about industrial impact. DP can find broad scale research, so everyone knows that. So that's not a problem. We don't have to justify the real impact to industry. So this is different. The second point I'd like to make, I think this part is more for detail assessors instead of general assessors. Detail assessors are supposed to be the expert in the field. So not necessarily in the 5 digits FOR codes, but at least in the 3 digits, like in civil engineering, mechanical engineering, not necessarily in geotech, which is part of civil. So what I mean here is you can't afford to be ambitious, but it's very hard to give an example. If you say, I will solve the climate change problem, I don't think the detail assessor will buy it. Instead, I think you can talk more about specific problems you want to solve. What's the real benefit? There's generic benefit, advanced knowledge, building capacity. So again, this is related to project quality and innovation. If it's a really innovative or significant project, of course it will advance knowledge, and it's worthwhile to build research capacity in those areas. In addition to that, we can also have specific benefits. For example, solving a specific real-life problem, engineering problem, can be a long-lasting problem. You provide alternative solution, or you provide a better solution. It can lead to improvement in professional standards, design codes, or guidelines. So this kind of thing we can always, detail assessors always like to read. Of course, you have to back up with real evidence. My general feeling is general assessors, or the so-called SAC member, they don't necessarily pay too much attention to this part. Of course, if you can articulate a good story about national science research priorities, of course you should do it. And this is for ARC papers. It's not necessary for assessment, for assessors. The national science research priority are so general, so you can always find a way to link to it, especially from FEIT, engineering and IT. I think we don't have much difficult there. Okay, Radhi, this is all my talk. I'm quite happy to take a few questions.
Thank you, Dai Chao.
Any questions? So if not, you can ask questions later on. Now we move to Jai. He will talk about this feasibility.
Yep, just hold on. Yep.
Okay, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to see you all and talk to you about DP application. The feasibility part is somehow strongly related with the other sections, which my colleagues have covered. As Dr. mentioned, somehow implied. Feasibility probably on the grander scales is the least important. If everything else is perfect, it's very unlikely someone will kill any project based on the visibility. Having said that, this is not an independent topic. This section is really strongly linked to and supported by other sections. So in a way, somehow in this section, you need to have a summary to state at least the following important factors, in my opinion. The first one you need to state, the project plan is very solid. It's realistic. You really need to put some details, not overdoing it, but some details. For example, who is doing what and when. Recently, I checked a few applications from our faculty. Some of them simply put all the CIs in every task to make the RA's job, student job, and the lead CI job are more or less the same. That's not a convincing story. People may argue, why do you need all of them? So that's one thing. The second point in the summary should be to say the team has the right expertise. So the team has the right capability and track records, including project management and delivery track records. So if you can say so, the team has worked together, or we have delivered some projects, so the project will be well managed in time to the budget. The third point is accessibility to all the necessary facility and tools, data. So people will ask questions if you have this missing. So do we have all the equipment to the job? Do we have access to the necessary data we need to research on? Things like this should be considered. The last thing I have in mind is research environments. If you feel your team may not have strong enough track record, you could say that the team will be supported by esteemed colleagues. Also, if you do need some support staff, for example, technicians who do a lot of the bench work for you, you can say the school, the faculty has the technicians and well-equipped lab to help you with the measurements, testing, etc. So these are the main things I think we need to cover. Thank you. Any questions?
Before ask questions, I would like to mention actually feasibility and benefits are quite important. The situation is in the panel member, that's when you got this all the scores, and the panel will do a ranking based on scores of all the applications. Assume we have, because the successful rate only in 20%, about 20%. And then this, if you have this 20 or 30 applications, all got A for capability, or got B for proposal of methodology and innovation. Now that's really based on your scores in feasibility and benefit. That if one of them or both got an A, you still have a chance to be top 25%, roughly every year different. But if not A, you got a B or D or C, then there's you're hard to be ranked in top 20. So so sometimes we are as a student. we need to make sure there's all the questions we get a good answer, and all the questions we get A and get a good mark. If you miss any question or get very low score for the question, then you miss the proposal successful possibility. So also, I had my experience to say one proposal just because of feasibility, they got unsuccessful. He would like to do something, I couldn't remember. But people just argue this university couldn't offer those equipment. So they don't think this high cost project can be supported by ARC. Even supported everything, they don't think you have a good preparation, good equipment support to be successful. That's just this at one point. And now it's time for questions, Renee, right?
So G, there's one question from Singu, and I think it applies to all the panel members. For a resubmission of a DP proposal, should you change the proposal a lot and make it different from last year?
This depends. If last year you near miss, top 10, top 20, particularly top 10% near miss, then you only can this improve some of this weak part. Don't need to rewrite everything. Of course, you need to update your personal CV, contribution, rope, and so on. But if you were ranked bottom 55%, 100%, you need to rewrite a lot. And then you can, of course, that's just like we write a journal paper based on reviewers' report, ask you to write a response or this, you know, maybe you need to rethink your aims, maybe you rethink a couple of tasks based on last year's assessment report.
Sengu, that's answer your question, or?
Well, yeah, yes. But I think in my case, it's quite. We got 4 reports from general assessors, and they're all actually quite good. But you know, in the end, we did not get it. So I just don't know. From my personal experience, if I review the same proposal twice, I will see there's not much change. They haven't done much over the last year. You know, probably psychologically thinking like, you know, you probably need to revise the proposal a little bit to make it.
Of course, anytime you need to revise. Near me, that's like there's a journal paper minor revision. Even minor, you need to revise. And you need to add new database. You need to do literature review for some papers published in the last 12 months. And also you need to update. But you said quite good assessors report. Doesn't mean you still have some comments or questions from assessors. So those are you need to address. Probably this year, quite a high chance, based on if you don't change keywords, don't change your this focus, that your proposal could be assigned to the same assessors as last year. So you will think if they put comments and you didn't address.
I understand.
However, doesn't mean if very good assessors report, that's 2 reasons your paper, your proposal was not successful. Reason 1, they put good comments, but they didn't give you A. And the second, panel member didn't give you A. If you get all A, then you will be successful. No question. So why panel member didn't give you A, or why these people didn't give you A, at least some. So now you can think, maybe make your proposal more innovative, make a feasibility even more convincing, or there's some part, yeah.
Sure, let's see what we can do.
But I don't think you need to change the topic. You need to rewrite the methodology. Your top 10 near miss, right?
I don't know. I think in the end, I talked to research office as well. I think I showed that assessors' comments today, Charles, as well. And I think you read that one. Maybe you and Michael. Yeah, I don't know why. I think maybe it was.
Yeah. Check your system and you online. That you can see this is which part near miss. This which part this you need to pay more attention.
Sure. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
So we got one question from Ben. How important is it to ensure that publications are right up to date? What if we have something accepted for publications but not yet in ORCID? In ORCID, yeah.
Who would like to answer the question?
I don't think it's very important. Unless that publication is right in the field, it's like a preparation work for your proposal. ARC has changed from the past, from the numbers of publication to limit the number of maximum 100 publications in the row. So, of course, if you have a year of gap, there's no publication or no journal publication, that may raise some question. If you have time publications from 2020 or 11 or 12, I don't think it make a difference. I don't know other panel members.
Yeah, I agree. Every year, particularly last couple of years, you should have good publications to show your active researcher. And carefully select the top 10 publications. And when you select the top 10, please select someone published in the last couple of years. I remember some one application put out the top 10, published this 10 more years ago. Then people will question in the panel. People questioned that the applicant, leading CI, particularly leading CI, and was not very active in recent years. That's not a positive question. So.
That's a follow-up question.
I think there's a follow-up question from Ben.
It's a very good question. I remember when I was in the panel, we had a good discussion on should ARC find project with proven track record, or should we just find good ideas? But my guess, the DP's gain is heavily on proven track record. The relevance, it's again, it's for detailed assessors. So we can't usually, for each of us, we don't change our research interest that often. But for example, if I'm applying for a DP this year, which uses machine learning, but I just happen to have one journal publication on machine learning, of course, I would put that one in. And I will put it in the one of the top 10 career. But of course, it's your research interest is almost like fixed. Every publication is related to your research interest. So, not sure if I answered your question then.
Yeah, kind of attempted it. I guess it's just some of us maybe at some points in our career have been working in other areas, let's say, and our publication track record might look a bit, not so focused in the earlier years, and this can be a problem, I think, for the panel, the review panel. But it's like everything I've done has led to me being where I am right now, and that's why I'm asking for this project to be funded, because it's the next stage of my career. It's really what I want to do. So I obviously have a limit of 100 publications that you can include. I don't have that many, but people are saying just you put everything in. Everything is relevant because it defines who you are at this stage of your career. Whereas, I'm looking at some of my publications thinking, well, that isn't really relevant to the project. So what do they mean by relevance is the question. I don't know if it's possible to really answer it. I think it's one of those things that you find out, like if they want to reject your application, maybe they'll pick on those things. But if it's a really good idea, then it shouldn't matter that you've got the odd publication either that's like not, it's in your list that's not directly relevant, or that you disclude, or that you don't include, let's say.
Tough question. I have seen a project funded to a person with no track record in that area. But of course, you will often see comments like that. This guy has outstanding track record, but not necessarily in this area. And he's applying for project in this area. I think it's, again, it depends how we articulate our case. Also depends on the context of Australia. If it happened to be a very active research field in Australia and a lot of people work in that area, and you are not one of them, it will be difficult, I think. So you are trying to invite someone else's territory. That's called relevance, right? But otherwise, if it's new trend, it's in your, I don't know which discipline area you're from, but everyone is an emerging area. Just go ahead.
Can I make one comment just very briefly on that topic? Ben mentioned that his number of publications is less than the 100 that is allowed in the system. Just keep in mind that you know, when you've got, say, less than the maximum, and remember, for some people that's you know, significantly less than the full track record they have if they're you know, been in the field for quite a long time. It means that they'll scrutinize very closely, or have the ability, due to the number, to scrutinize your publications closely. So I would argue that in your particular case that you're saying, it might be worthwhile to be very a little bit more careful in what you select as relevant or not. Even though I agree with you that it's the whole track record that's brought you to the position you're at. But you know, when someone walks into a DP and has 400 papers, no one's going to look through the whole lot, but they'll try and pick the very, and you know, at the end of the day, people will go into Google Scholar profiles, and certainly that's what I do when I make assessments. I don't just base it on just the 100, but if you do have less than the 100, people will scrutinize that list. So, you know, you should think about the ones you put forward as being relevant, and think about the ones you want to highlight for that particular application. That's just my perspective on that.
Can I ask my other question about what constitutes similar research?
Yeah, you ask, yeah.
Thank you. So sometimes you might be awaiting the outcome for another ARC managed round of funding. To be specific, in this case, I would say it's the National Intelligence and Security Defence DPs, which has similar work included in it to that which I was or might be thinking to put in the DP. You have to declare that you're awaiting the outcome and that it's similar research when you complete RMS, of course. But you've also got to identify how you will manage to complete one or the other of the two projects in isolation, in the case that not both of them or both of them or just one of them, sorry, just one of them or both of them is funded. So it presents a bit of a challenge if there are similar elements, like underlying elements that are required to progress both. Like neither is funded currently. There are some fundamental things that need to be answered to be able to make progress. They can't be duplicative. But if they're complementary, yeah, it's a bit of a dilemma. In some respects, I'm looking back thinking I shouldn't have applied for this national intelligence funding, because it's kind of taken a piece of what I should have put in my DP that now I can't ask for funding for in the DP, because I'm awaiting the outcome from the NISDAG. Any ideas?
I'll give you my personal ideas. Number one, I don't encourage people to submit same proposal or highly similar proposals to this funding body. So that's number one. For ARCDP, if you have done some little small project, then you can claim that it's a pre-study for ARCDP. That is positive. Okay. In principle, that is a part of your feasibility. You have done some pilot study or pre-study, prove some basic concepts, or after DP, you can apply DP's results into industry or into real world anyway. But not a good idea to submit two highly similar proposals to two funding bodies. Honestly, ARCDP is basically it's quite theoretical research and fundamental research. They would like you to have some new ideas, new frameworks, new methodologies, and so on, not application oriented. Michael, do you have any suggestions, ideas?
No, I fully agree with what you said, G. I think, you know, when you have preliminary projects that can scale to what you're proposing in the DP, that's really good. And of course, that's actually can be drawn on to effect a good case for why you should be funded because you've successfully, but, you know, there should be some care taken if there are, you know, other projects that relate similarly or heavily to what you're trying to get funding for in the current circumstance. So, so I'm not sure if you're more concerned about the similarity of the projects as opposed to the time you can devote to each one if both are successful. So
it's just one aspect. So it's like one work package that needs to be completed for the rest of the work to be done on both of those projects. And if one project isn't funded, then like I can't ask for funding for that same work, i.e. one work package on the DP, because I've already asked for it on the other application. If the other application isn't funded, that work package won't get completed. So I can't do what I'm asking for money for the DP to do. Does that make more sense now?
yeah, that makes
a dilemma. I don't know.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, the only thing I would suggest there is that you would have a contingency, because, you know, you don't want to also, you know, give away too much around what will happen if this project doesn't get funded and how this will affect the current project. You know, I mean, you'll introduce uncertainty into the assessors. If there is any concern around, you know, work packages that lead up to doing the work you're proposing in the current proposal for a DP, and you don't get that funding, there should be a contingency built into how you would manage that. And because the main thing what I'm trying to say is you just don't want to introduce too much questions in the mind of the assessors about you being able to undertake the work if it's contingent on too many other things.
The situation is Australia. It's in a small community. So and other days, you know, programs also use ARC assessors. So this quite often happened. Even consider two different programs, but if in same area and we got same assessors. So yeah, these assessors will put that question as well.
I just saw Ben's response. I think your questions are relevant actually, and are probably very helpful. Some of the questions you've posed are probably very helpful to others who are in similar situations. So I hope the answers that have been given are helpful to you as well individually.
We've got another question on the chat from Yang Yang. Will the expert assign proposals to assessors under the same FOR code to examine each other in the same round? Will that be a conflict of interest? How to avoid this from happening? Will NTA be a good option? I learned from the peers that better not to use NTA, as that will make panel members feel you are afraid of letting your proposal to be assessed by the peers in your field.
I can try to answer this first, then this other people can answer as well. All the conflicts of interest, people couldn't be appear in the list when the assessors, when the panel members assign assessors. For example, if I'm a panel member, then I cannot assign this. If I'm an applicant, then the panel member cannot assign my applications to any of UTI staff. So that's automatically, the system automatically put that criteria already. And for full codes, and not only full codes, also consider some keywords. Those will combine together and to give a long list of these assessors. Then the panel member will say which one they would like to choose. Also, they base quite highly based on the current workload of each assessor. For example, the first assessor, I would like to say, oh, he already accepted to assess 10 DPs, too busy. So consider second. Second has already agreed to assess 11 LPs, or too busy, down next. So basically that's just very similar as editor-in-chief or associate editors to choose reviewers, because they give you a long list that you can choose any of them, 4+4.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you so much for the advice. And just because I just wonder for the same round, if people are working in the same field, they might choose the same FOR code, but you know, that I just feel it could be conflict of interest, because I learned from the previous cases that people actually, they assess each other in the same round, and even the topic could be very similar. So I know that from same institute we can't assess each other, but from other institute, I learned from that that's happening. So I don't know, because I think that's the system should be able to pop up a warning message, that right, and to show the potential conflict of interest. But I don't know if this is the case.
So you mean there's two applications. There's A assesses B and B assesses A.
Yeah, from different universities.
I'm not sure the system can do it or not, because put A to assess B, then maybe from a panel member X, and put B to assess A, it's probably come from another panel member Y. So they don't know each other. They don't know who's panel members don't talk each other about this which persons or which these applications you handle. Only know you handle 100, I handle 99. Only know the number. So they don't know who assigned.
So the current ARC system doesn't identify this issue.
I don't know. So A assess B, B assess A. This one I don't know.
I
don't know it
happens.
happened. I don't know the system will.
Gee, can I say something? I think it happens. ARC can't detect this kind of conflict of interest. But at 1 year, I received the application which is very similar to my application, my own application. So I'm assessing somebody else applying the same project, basically. Of course, the writing is different, but I declare conflict of interest. So I wrote back to ARC, this is not appropriate. So this kind of conflict of interest is very hard to detect. You can always, when you're asked to assess some project which is very similar to yours,
Yang, can I ask, what particularly are you concerned about? I'm trying to understand. I mean, you're going.
I guess it's concerned about marking down from your competitors, right?
Yeah, I understand that, but we have that in real life, right? We submit to a journal. Our competitors are going to review our paper, right? I mean, so what that illustrates to you is that you need to know your, competitors. You need to. I think Chenchi mentioned in one of his parts of his presentation that you should actually acknowledge the people in your area who are doing work that are related to yours and ensure that you're acknowledging that so that you can then clearly state what's new in yours. I mean, competitor doesn't mean that's a bad thing. It actually can be quite good. But I think you shouldn't, put so much emphasis on worrying about A assessing B, B assessing A, because it happens in the academic area anyway. For journals, conferences, you should just be, doing good research.
Yeah, related to another question about NTA, whether or not it was to use it or just because according to my understanding, it's better to not use it because it doesn't make too much sense. Like
let me ask. Hi, Yang. I think I know where Yang comes from. He worked in similar field of mine. The number of experts in those fields actually is not big, right? So quite often, people are working in similar areas. They might not like each other. That's like life, as Michael put it. I'll put two things to you. Yeah. The first thing is the system is based just like a typical peer review system. The ARC trusts every assessor to be fair, not judgmental to each other. They cannot take that kind of assumption away. Otherwise, we can't have a system. So the second thing is the fact that the number of assessors in our field is small. I mean, eventually you will come to the proposal will either go to your friend or go to your not so friend colleague. Yeah, so that's gonna again affect life. We can't avoid it. You can't say that conflict of interest just because our community is not big. The NTA actually is not a bad thing. Just to be honest with you, I advise people to put NTAs in my field or in our field all the time. Because as we said, it's a small field. Let's say there are 20 people. You don't like someone, then you say, okay, he doesn't like me, or she doesn't like me. I know that. And if there is solid reason for you to say the assessor might be biased, you to say there's conflict of interest.
Yeah, right.
There's nothing wrong with it. I always use NTAs, just to be honest with you.
Thank you so much for that, because I was very confusing whether to use it or not. So, because to be honest, the first time I applied for DACRA, I used it. The second time I didn't use it. I can feel the very strange comments, and if I use NTA, my proposal went to the physics people, and we are totally talking about different languages. And but if I also noticed that like Dai Qiao mentioned, the ideas could be similar, and so that's something because definitely, because we are a small community, definitely the peers can see our ideas, and maybe that will pop up the next round. So that's a thing. But I agree with Michael that I have to focus on technology and the innovations, and maybe that's the best we can do. And yeah, NTA, that's something I have to think about it, because our community is really, really compact. Yeah.
I think just a final word on that, and Jay's put it very well as well in his response. Yeah, so obviously good research, good innovation, always positive. But you know, if you've been in a field for a certain length of time, you know, you get to know people extremely well. So you get to know the people who aren't your so-called friends, right? So if required, then yes, NTA is a good idea. If you're very clear and you know what the boundaries are. So, but one thing you just mentioned now, Yang, is that you should think deeply on that. And I think that's important before making your choices and decisions in relation to that.
Yeah. Fully agree. Thank you so much for your advice. Thank you.
I seldom use NTA because in theory, you don't know who is assessing your application. So how can you know? You know you are assessing whose application, but you will never know who is assessing your application.
Yeah.
No,
It's NTA, sorry. NTA normally used in the situation. For examples, we know in machine learning areas, somebody, just example, somebody love deep learning, somebody don't. Then they say, if your proposal is about deep learning, then you know a couple of people really don't like deep learning. Then you can say don't let the person to assess your proposal. That's the normal case. So there's just in case people don't like yourself, it's don't like this the methodology, because always in this we know in academic domains some people love.
Jay, I think in the past what you said is right. Where in the past AIC has all assessors, inter-assessors. You have to have some certain qualification to be assessor. Nowadays, your PhD postdoc, not PhD students, can be assessor of a laureate fellowship. So you know one famous guy who doesn't like this idea, it may not be him, maybe some research associate. So everyone can assess.
That's true. But if you have 3 NTAs, just put the name there, doesn't hurt. Right? I think, sorry, Michael, just the last word. I think it depends on the community. We know Australia is not a big country. Each community is limited. We know, generally speaking, if people are all fair and square, then you don't use ATA. But even though there are people who are not fair, then use it. That's my opinion. Just be realistic.
I think I just wanted to make a comment. It's really interesting to hear Jay's and G's comment, because I'm also in the field of G's area, right? And what's interesting in your field, Jay, you probably can identify specific number of people. You can actually identify who will most likely get to review your stuff because of the size of that specific community. But interestingly, in the field that G and I are in, we actually, even though Australia is really small, we actually have a lot of people in that area. Yeah. And I would argue that it's actually better to know who probably will assess your application, rather than in the case of G and I, most likely we won't, because there's just so many to choose from.
Yes.
So in our area, really, we have maybe 200 people in the area could assess your proposal.
Yes. And that's just people probably at mid to senior level. If you include
you even don't know the names.
Yeah, you could know the names. And the point that she's making about deep learning versus not deep learning. I mean, there are people in our community that hate deep learning, really hate it. and they will be really nasty. And I would not. And there's so many of those that I couldn't tell you who it would be that might read my application.
Just,
so to the on-site,
just select 3. But this one really based on area, right? Based on personal experience. Yeah,
it's based on the community, as you said, Jay. It's not only you know, and you know, there are some bigger communities and smaller communities to worry about. Yeah, so it's a good thought, actually. I'll be thinking very deeply about this, about my own situation.
Any other questions? No more questions. Anyway, we have. So, Renee, any questions?
I'm just going to go and remind everyone of the deadline. So speaking of the request not to assess, so the deadline with the research office is on Monday, February 8th. If you want to submit any requests for RNTA, so it's via RMS application. So just letting everyone know. And then also the My Proposal will need to be submitted to the faculty via Research Master on the 15th of February. So that we can go through with all those approvals with the research office. And also one more thing for the peer review. So thank you for those ones that actually participated. So we have almost a third of the applicants actually participated in the peer review, so which is really a good outcome this year. So if you haven't received any email from me, but you submitted a draft D to me in the last few days, please let me know, because you know, at the end of the day, I might miss out 1 or 2 applications. Please let me know by today so I can nominate someone to do the nominated reader for your proposal. So that's it for me, and all the best for this year for everyone.
Thank you very much, Renee, and thank you, Michael, Jai, Dachao, and Chengqi. And thank you, everyone who participated in today's roundtable. Please join me to thank all the experts to give presentations and answer questions.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Good luck for
all the
everyone.
best with the applications.
Good luck.
Thanks, Xi. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.